What's happening, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome to week 9. We're approaching the halfway point of the 2023 NFL season, which means it's gut check time for your fantasy squads. 6 weeks left before the fantasy playoffs. About that. So, if you're not in the stretch run, it's fast approaching. And it kicks off tonight with Steelers Titans. DeAndre Hopkins expected to play. He was dealing with a toe injury earlier this week. He didn't practice yesterday, but it sounds like he's going to go. I think that was the only major injury of note, at least as far as who was potentially playing tonight. But he's going to go. You simply have to fire him up after last week's explosion against the Atlanta Falcons. While we're not expecting a repeat of any kind, in all likelihood, you need to fire him up. Well, Kenny Pickett as well, dealing with an injury, but he declared himself earlier in the week full go for this game. Sounds like there are no concerns or injury designations for Kenny Pickett either. The Steelers' regular starter will be playing tonight. And while the Pittsburgh offense as a whole doesn't inspire very much at all, this is a good spot for their passing offense. Tennessee has not been very good in the secondary this year. That only got worse with the trade of Kevin Byard. They did okay this past week, but they were playing an Atlanta Falcons offense that is broken from a quarterback perspective and a player usage perspective. So I guess any secondary can look potent against an offense like that, deploying a quarterback combination of Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. So we'll see what Pickett and the Steelers offense can do, the passing attack can do. This is a tough spot for both Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. You might not have a better RB3 flex play to turn to with some significant players on bye this week. Hopefully you don't have to fire up Najee Harris tonight, but that might be what we're looking at as far as your third best option at running back, or your fourth or fifth best option from an overall team perspective as far as who goes into your flex tonight. Not that you're putting Thursday Night Football players in the flex, but just determining the best 5, 6, 7 guys that are most viable for your starting lineup. This is a bad spot, though, for both Harris and Warren. Tennessee presents a very strong run defense. And, of course, for the Steelers' backfield themselves, it is a full-blown committee at this point. Najee at least gets most of the red zone opportunities. About a 2-to-1 split in his favor. Still, very much a full-blown committee. You are only firing these guys up, specifically Najee, if you have no other options because of bye weeks. You're starting DeAndre Hopkins. You're starting Derrick Henry. Duh. The Steelers are giving up production to opposing running backs. Not that you need any convincing to play Derrick Henry tonight. Maybe there's some added optimism that Will Levis can kind of open things up for the Titans offense after tossing 4 scores last week. Perhaps there won't be as many stacked boxes for Derrick Henry to have to go up against this evening. But on the road, I will just caution, on the road on a short week, don't be surprised to see Tajay Spears get in there a little bit more frequently and a little bit more often than he normally would. Generally speaking, teams Really like to utilize committees on a short week. And while Derrick Henry is one of those guys that you just fire up without thinking about it, regardless of how much rest he's on, that is something that should be noted. I would think Tajay Spears gets a decent amount of run tonight to help spell Derrick Henry on a short week. Both guys will be utilized. You figure Derrick Henry still would see, in the range of 20 touches. He's got 3 games. He's got 3 games where he's got 23 touches or more. He's got 4 games where he is under 20 touches. That could be the case this evening. Nevertheless, you still fire him up and hope for the best. The only viable options on Pittsburgh's side of the ball to start tonight are the wide receivers. Deontay Johnson and George Pickens can be fired up as wide receiver threes. Hopefully, they can put up wide receiver 2 performances, but this is still a very uninspiring passing offense led by Kenny Pickett. Again, on a short week, that throws a wrench into any type of potential ceiling play here for either one. But since Deontay came back in 2 games, 5 catches for 79 yards, then last week against the Jaguars, 8 catches for 85 yards. So he improved his marks across the board last week compared to his first week back. That's probably about what you're hoping for from Deontay Johnson tonight. 7 to 8 catches, 75 to 85 yards. He hasn't scored a touchdown in a year and a half or longer. So you're hoping that spell gets broken tonight. This would be the matchup for him to do that. Nearly had a score last week, but Pickett threw the ball behind him. And it was just too difficult to play to make in bad weather. You're firing him up as a low-end wide receiver too, with some decent PPR upside. As for Pickens, he had a really strong game in Deontay's first game back. He still ended up with 5 catches for 107 yards. Last week was a different story. He still came through for fantasy purposes because he caught a touchdown. The problem was it was the only catch that he had last week. Pickens caught 1 ball for 22 yards. It was a touchdown on 5 targets. Again, less than ideal weather conditions might have contributed to that a little bit. Only getting 5 targets is not great. And obviously, Deontay Johnson is going to be the first read a little bit more frequently than Pickett's will be. So that, again, caps his upside. Same trajectory, same projection, though, as Deontay. Low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. We're going to need him to come through with more than just 1 catch. That luckily, thankfully, resulted in a score last week, but you're going to need more than that for him to come through this evening. So we'll see if the Steelers offense can get anything going tonight at home on a short week against a beatable secondary. And then just to go around the NFL, just to take a look at injuries, the latest injury reports. We now have 2 days of practice reports and injury updates since Tuesday. Certainly provide some clarity as our lineups start to take shape ahead of the full slate. Raheem Mostert dealing with an ankle injury, but he should be fine for the Week 9 game in Germany between the Chiefs and the Dolphins. That'll be an early game. That's 9:30 East Coast start time. Again, we will forego the Sunday morning start sit stream. We do that for the early games, for the international games, to free up that spot so that you guys can watch the games. I will be around in Discord on Sunday morning if you need some help. Second link in the description of this stream and every video on this channel. So if you're not in the Discord, feel free to join. It is an evergreen invite. We can talk through any last minute thoughts Sunday morning. But the main start sit help will be my Saturday stream at 6 p.m. Eastern. We can talk through stuff then, about 12 hours prior to the Chiefs Dolphins kickoff. Deshaun Watson is still day to day. Doesn't sound like there's been any definitive decision about whether he's going to play this week or not against Arizona. So stay tuned there. If PJ Walker gets another start, that's 2 good games to 1 bad game for Amari Cooper with PJ Walker under center. You probably have to fire him up as a wide receiver 3 and hope for the best. Maybe Elijah Moore sees a couple more looks after the trade of Donovan Peoples-Jones to Detroit, but I'm wondering if they're trying to get Cedric Tillman on the field a little bit more with that move. That feels like a little bit more of what the goal ultimately might be here. Because Elijah Moore and Donovan Peoples-Jones, that's 2 entirely different roles on offense for the Browns. Marquise Goodwin could get a little bit more involved. Maybe David Bell sees an extra touch or 2. Perhaps this means that they're just going more 12 personnel and Harrison Bryant sees a little bit more of an opportunity with David Njoku in 2 tight end sets. But it's a slight downgrade for Deshaun Watson, for PJ Walker, for if he has to start, and Deshaun Watson in general. The Browns trade away a guy that was able to operate as a deep threat for them. And a regular contributor and starter on offense. I mean, played 80% of the snaps in every game but 1 this year. It hasn't really translated to a ton of production. But he's no longer there. So we'll see how the Browns ultimately decide to move forward there. Drake London, second straight missed practice. It's looking like he's going to miss the game for the Atlanta Falcons against the Minnesota Vikings. That is like injuries galore, that game between London, Kirk Cousins. Desmond Ritter's no longer hurt, but he did pick up a concussion last week. So a lot of pieces affected by injury in that game. I would be surprised at this point if London were able to suit up. Darren Waller's already ruled out. If you are looking for a quarterback this week, I assume Daniel Jones is available in 10 and 12 team leagues. He's not on the radar. He's been abysmal outside of that week 2 game against the Cardinals. Now he's down Waller. No, thank you. But Daniel Jones will play for whatever it's worth. It depends on how desperate you are and whether he's even available. One other injury of significance, Dameon Pierce. He's not practicing for the second straight day. It's looking like he might have to sit this week. So Devin Singletary looks like a decent add if you are in need of a running back fill-in for this week. Houston is playing Tampa Bay. Not a great matchup on paper, but they are at home, the Texans are. So you could do worse as a stopgap for a flex play for this week. If Dameon Pierce can't go, Devin Singletary is not a bad option. He was already splitting backfield work with Damian Pierce, with a healthy Damian Pierce anyway. The job all to himself could yield some decent results. You figure if Singletary sees 16, 17 carries, is able to pick up 2 or 3 catches, I can't, there's upside there for a low end RB2 performance with maybe a little bit more. So obviously, if you have Damian Pierce or you don't have Damian Pierce, but Devin Singletary is available and you're a little thin at running back, Singletary should be a guy that's on your radar. If you have the roster spot, you maybe just want to lock him in as an option just in case. Our Cardinals, there's a lot going on here. Kyler Murray is not listed on the injury report for week 9, so Murray continues to progress toward playing again. It looks like it could be Clayton Tune this week. I don't know if you necessarily want to bring Kyler Murray back. First game returning from the torn ACL on the road against what might be the best defense in the NFL in Cleveland. That's probably not the best way to bring back, at least for now, your franchise quarterback. That could change as a result of whatever happens in the 2024 NFL draft. But as of today, right now, Kyler Murray is still the Cardinals franchise quarterback. They want to be smart with him. They want to be cautious with him. They're not going to throw him to the Wolves in his first game back on the road against the best defense in the league. They'll ease him back in. It's probably looking like Kyler's going to play week 10, going to start week 10. And any doubt that that would be the case, that Kyler would eventually play this year, was officially erased when Josh Dobbs was traded to Minnesota. I'm sure that the Cardinals, a team that is clearly looking toward the future, wouldn't mind getting Clayton Tune a look and seeing what they have in him. It's probably not too much you're going to be able to determine from this game against the Browns. It's about as tough a matchup as it gets. Fade all Cardinals this week. Fade Marquise Brown. Fade Trey McBride. Michael Wilson isn't practicing. You weren't starting him anyway. Amari Demercado isn't practicing today. So we might be down to Keontae Ingram. Good freaking luck against that Browns front seven. Assuming it's Clayton Tune for the Cardinals, we're fading every single one of those guys. And hopefully he held on to the Browns defense, because that is the play of the week as far as defense goes for week 9. I think those are the major injuries. Or as far as around the NFL, the injury reports leading up to tonight, and of course leading up to the Sunday slate. We'll get more clarity on certain guys like Damian Pierce. Friday will be telling. Drake London. Matthew Stafford, of course, is dealing with a thumb injury. He's already not expected to play. He hasn't been ruled out yet. If it's Brett Ripien, you probably have to start Cooper Kupp. I don't blame you if you want to pivot off of Puka Nacua. Might be difficult with the bye weeks and whoever else you may have available to you. So just keep an eye on practice reports. If Stafford is able to battle through that thumb injury, you feel a little bit better about it, but it is still a situation where he's going to be operating at less than 100%. It is the thumb on his throwing hand. Stafford is a gamer. He is a dog. He has played through injuries throughout his entire career. He has earned that respect that if he goes, you can feel a little bit better about his weapons, about his wide receivers. But nasty thumb injury on his throwing hand, that downgrades the offense. That downgrades the passing game. Second straight road game. Tough spot. Tough spot. You probably have to start Cup. If it's Brett Ripien, I am looking to move off of Puka, depending on, of course, who you have available to you. David Njoku logged a limited practice as well. He looks like he's on track to play. He's probably the biggest beneficiary of uh, Donovan Peoples-Jones moving on. Maybe those few looks that DPJ was getting, maybe they get picked up by Njoku. Amari Cooper's role is unchanged. I don't know that it necessarily affects Elijah Moore in any way. They play two different roles. Okay, injury roundup complete. I can start taking questions. I'm sure some folks have some start sit questions, especially that pertain to tonight. Again, one more time quickly. You're starting DeAndre Hopkins. You're starting Derrick Henry. You probably have to start Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, but temper expectations in this lackluster Steelers offense. Hopefully you have better options other than Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Tajay Spears get in there a little bit more frequently than normal on a short week on the road, spelling Derrick Henry a little bit more than he normally would. But it's Derrick Henry. You have no choice. You have to start him. All right, let's get into it. We'll kick things off with Astro, and we'll make our way down. Members will get first priority on questions if I see them pop in, and then of course, if you're feeling so inclined to leave a super, you don't have to, but if you do, I will. That will be a line jumper as well. Otherwise, I just ask for patience as I make my way through the chat. All right, you're between James Cook, Gus Edwards, and Jacoby Myers. I'm not starting Myers until I see how he does with Aiden O'Connell. Jimmy Garoppolo has been presumably benched for the rest of the season. There's not really any reason for the Raiders to go back to him. He's been terrible, and right now they are on the outside looking in by a wide margin. They just cleaned house. The vibes are bad. They didn't make any moves at the deadline, at least as far as players go. But Myers was being propped up by Jimmy Garoppolo. I need to see how he does with Aiden O'Connell before I go back to him. Gus gets the Seahawks at home. James Cook is in a potential shootout in Cincinnati between the Bills and the Bengals. I would go Cook, especially in full PPR. To me, the Leonard Fournette signing, and let me just check. I'm pretty sure I have this correct, but Latavius Murray has just not been that good this year. He had one game on a per touch basis where he played really well. That was week 4 against Miami. He took 4 carries and turned them into 32 yards, and he caught 2 balls for 24 yards. Outside of that, Latavius Murray has looked done. He's looked like dust. I think the Leonard Fournette addition is more of an indictment on Latavius Murray. I don't think James Cook's role is in any way unchanged. I think we're about to see Latavius Murray pretty much go to the waste bin. And the touches that he was previously getting are now going to get scooped up by Fournette. This is a potential shootout. James Cook is the pass-catching running back anyway, so in full PPR, he gets even a larger boost. I would go James Cook here as your, of those options left, of the guy that I would fire up along with your other starters. And the rest of it looks good. No changes there. Cook. You're playing James Cook. Potential shootout against the Bengals. I don't think his role has changed in any way just because Fournette got signed. Go James Cook. And yep, agreed about Singletary. If you're hurt by bye weeks, if you're not sure what to do, if obviously there's still a couple days left to set your lineup unless you're playing players that are going tonight. Um, Singletary is looking like a solid option this week. Again, if you are in a pinch, um, we're looking at a potential absence from Dameon Pierce this week. If he can't go, Singletary is going to get 20 touches. He already had 12 last week. He had 13 the week prior before the bye week. That's with a healthy Dameon Pierce getting his normal 16, 17 touches. This is an offense that is utilizing their running backs a lot. If Dameon Pierce can't go, Singletary is going to see a bump in usage. Mike Boone, Daria Gumbawale are both there. Maybe those guys mix in for a few extra looks than they normally would, but you got to think Devin Singletary without Dameon Pierce has a 15-touch floor, and he was already getting close to that with Dameon Pierce in the lineup. So you could be looking at 17, 18, almost 20 touches for Devin Singletary. And he's been okay. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been that good, but he's been all right. Last week was a little bit of a struggle. 10 carries for 30 yards. 3 yards of carries, not good. Caught 2 balls, only 13 yards. But, I mean, he's getting usage in the receiving game. There's an opportunity there for him as the main guy. You could do worse as a desperate RB3 with Devin Singletary. Agreed on that. And okay, this is a trade question. So my tune about Justin Jefferson has changed a little bit, but my caution hasn't gone anywhere. My original concern with Justin Jefferson was that was the Vikings season salvageable to the point where Justin Jefferson comes back in the midst of the Vikings trying to make a late season run for the playoffs. That concern remains because now Kirk Cousins is lost for the season, and Justin Jefferson is going to be catching passes from some combination of Josh Dobbs and Jaron Hall. That whole offense took a big nosedive. I would keep Olave and Mostert. Olave's in a bit of a slump, but he's still seeing 10 targets a game more often than not. Aaron Jones, I mean, we could see the Aaron Jones of old in the second half of the season. It's been pulling teeth with the hamstring injury recently. They are not giving him the ball as much as you would like to see. And the Packers offense is not very good right now. The Dolphins offense is very good. And even if Devon Achane comes back, I mean, Mostert's not going to become so invaluable that he's as effective as as an injured Aaron Jones. You figure he's going to be fine. Jefferson obviously is the best player in this deal, but he just lost his quarterback. He's not going to play this week. He's not going to play next week. He might play week 11. The latest report is a good one for Justin Jefferson as far as when he's going to be able to return. And they're not giving up on their season, again, because they traded for Josh Dobbs. But, I mean, it's a big downgrade. So there's upside there, but there's a lot of risk right now. Like, I don't know that you can trust Aaron Jones rest of season. Justin Jefferson is awesome, but like, is he top 3 wide receiver in the league without Kirk Cousins? He's good enough by himself to put up numbers, but we're talking about a big drop off in quarterback play. If you feel like the risk outweighs the upside, okay. Having a good record allows you to roll those dice. Uh, it's just, losing Cousins hurts this whole offense. Jefferson's great, but this Vikings offense is capped now without Cousins. So it just depends on how willing you are to take that risk. And there's a lot of risk. You're trading for two guys who are injured. You're trading for two guys who are hurt. So just be cautious. Alex, Greg, good to see you guys. Thanks for coming in. Yes, I like Carr this week. Carr is a top 10 play this week, given the matchup and all of the guys who are on bye, plus all the quarterbacks who are injured. Carr is a top 10 play this week at home against the Bears. I don't hate how, but on the road against Belichick, I don't like him as much as a stream as far as somebody like Derek Carr. I'm okay with playing Carr this week. Over Geno Smith, over Gardner Minshew, over Sam Howell, over Jordan Love, Taylor Heineke, Baker Mayfield, all those guys. Zach Wilson. I like Carr over all those guys. And when I say he's top 10, he's probably 10th. I would prefer to play CJ Stroud over Derek Carr. The guys I'd rather play over Carr this week are the obvious ones: Hurts, Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, Tua, Herbert. I'd also start Dak, and I would start CJ Stroud. Other than that, Carr is fine to play this week over anybody I didn't just name. Let's see. We got 8-team, full PPR. You pick up Deontay. So when you say you're hoping you can count on him as a wide receiver too, that's his ceiling. This offense is just not very good. Matt Canada stinks. It's well known right by now. Matt Canada is a brutal offensive coordinator. The Steelers are a stubborn organization to a fault, maybe like a loyal organization to a fault. They are not one of those franchises that is going to allow for any type of upheaval in the middle of the season. They're not going to fire the guy. They're going to let this play out. The Steelers take their time. They're patient with these things, right? They just absorb negative things, negative losing seasons. They don't fire everybody. They don't clean house. They're not one of those organizations that do that. We are going to be dealing with a boring, inept, inconsistent Steelers offense for the rest of 2023. They're not going to do what the Raiders just did earlier this week and fire Matt Canada and either promote somebody within as an interim guy or bring somebody else in from the outside during the season. They are not going to do that. Their track record speaks for themselves. They are not going to they're not going to make any changes no matter how bad the offense is. And let's put it this way, it's a bad offense. The Steelers offense stinks. Now, Kenny Pickett has probably some blame on that. The offensive line is still progressing. It's still a work in progress. It's been bad for a couple seasons. It's a work in progress. The running game is boring. The wide receivers are solid. There's no superstar there. And the play calling is stale and boring. Deontay is solid. He's a PPR monster, so that boosts his floor if you play in PPR. You can start him tonight, but yeah, mid to low wide receiver 2 is what you're hoping for. You're hoping for 7 or 8 catches, 75 to 80 yards with a ceiling of 100 yards and a touchdown. But in this offense, any given week with Matt Canada calling the shots and Kenny Pickett dealing with a rib injury, it doesn't seem likely. With the rib injury, yeah, maybe Kenny Pickett, maybe, short throws, intermediate throws, get the ball out quick. That's Deontay's wheelhouse, right? Pepper him with targets. Mid to low end wide receiver, too. That's what you're hoping for. But it's fine to, him or Christian Watson. That Packers offense is real tough to trust right now, isn't it? Talking about offenses that can't be trusted. Um, that's certainly one of them. So opting for Deontay over Christian Watson in full PPR, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. That's good. I'm good with that. Deontay or Amari Cooper at the flex. First of all, don't play Thursday night football players in the flex. Always move them into position spots. That being said, if your options are Amari Cooper or Deontay Johnson, I would probably roll the dice with Amari Cooper. There is a chance that Deshaun Watson plays this week. And even if he doesn't, it's a really small sample size, but we now have 2 games to 1 when PJ Walker is in there for Cleveland. It's been 3 games. We've got 2 good games from Amari Cooper and 1 bad game from Amari Cooper. So if it were the other way around, if it was 1 good game and 2 bad games, I would probably say Deontay. That being said, I think Cooper has a better chance to come through. I guess than Deontay Johnson. He's much more of the bona fide wide receiver 1 for the Cleveland Browns, whereas it is Deontay for the Steelers, but Pickens is a much greater threat opposite Deontay than Elijah Moore is opposite Amari Cooper. I think I go Cooper. Is he on the injury report? Is Amari Cooper on the injury report? Obviously, Deshaun Watson is. Is Amari Cooper on the injury report? I'm not seeing anything. Let me check Brown's Twitter really quick, or X, whatever you want to call it. Oftentimes, teams post injury reports. Very useful over the course of the week. Did they? Amari Cooper held his press conference this week, so I think that's a good enough indication that he's fine. I would say Cooper. I would roll the dice on Cooper. Deontay's got a rock solid PPR floor, but Cooper's got a higher ceiling. If it's PPR, I don't know the scoring. If it's PPR, Deontay's a fine floor guy, but Amari Cooper has the ceiling, even if it is PJ Walker. At home, full week of rest, playing an inferior opponent. Yes, it's a favorable matchup for Deontay against the Titan secondary, but it's a favorable matchup for Amari Cooper, too, going against the Cardinals. I would say Cooper. If you do choose to play Deontay, move him out of your flex. Never play Thursday Night Football players in your flex. Always move them to a position spot. Maximize your flexibility. You never know what's going to happen later in the week. You never know what random injury might get picked up on a Friday. Keep those flex spots open until you have to use them. I always move my Sunday Night Football. If the last guy in my lineup that I know I'm playing is not playing until Sunday night, that guy goes in my flex. If it's Monday night, that guy goes in my flex. Protect yourself against potential injuries. You never know. All right. Another trade question. 20-man league. I like it. Jacobio and Demario Douglas for Metcalf. Well, shit, man. I mean, if you can, if somebody offered me DK Metcalf and I had to give up Jacoby Myers and Demario Douglas, that's an auto smash. That's an instant accept. Yes. Aaron Jones and Rondale Moore for Josh Jacobs. Um, I guess I would do both. First of all, I don't know who is giving up DK Metcalf for Jacoby Myers and Demario Douglas. But if you can pull that off, then do it. Jacoby Myers, a lot of his value was tied to Jimmy Garoppolo. And that could, he could rediscover efficiency with Aiden O'Connell eventually, but we're talking about a fourth-round rookie here who's taking over a team that is sinking fast. Just don't know how much I trust Jacoby Myers without Jimmy G. And then, yeah, if you can get Jacobs for Aaron Jones and Rondale Moore, I would say that's also a fairly easy yes. I love Aaron Jones, but he hasn't been right since he suffered that hamstring injury. They're not really playing him a ton. He might come back to being Aaron Jones in the second half of the season, maybe. But that's a maybe, and this is not a good offense. The Raiders aren't a great offense either, but Jacobs is healthy. And he takes all the backfield snaps. Jones splits work with A.J. Dillon even when he's healthy. So, yes, I would do both if you can do both. If you can pull them off, I would do both. The first one feels unlikely. If somebody offered me that for DK Metcalf, I would reject it immediately. But if you can pull the Aaron Jones trade off and get Jacobs, I'm on board with it. If you can do both, spectacular. I just don't know who's like. I would not part with DK for that return. But if you can make it happen, then by all means do it. By all means do it. Got an underdog notification. I wasn't sure if it was anything NFL related. It's NBA related, so we can keep it moving. Just waking up. What time is it where you're at? But hopefully it was a good sleep. Do I think AJ Dillon could be a sneaky play this week? The Packers play the Rams at home. Yeah, he could be. It depends on who else you have, who else you might have available to you, what your other options are. But yeah, until we see Aaron Jones look like the Aaron Jones of old, Dillon is viable. There's nothing scary about the matchup against the Rams, that's for sure. Especially if they're playing a backup quarterback, that could lead to some short fields for the Packers. Dillon is frustrating. He's not great, but he's a decent floor play. He comes through one way or another. In week 8, he had 5 catches for 41 yards. In week 7, he had 15 carries for 61 yards and 2 catches for 34. He totaled 95 yards of offense. That's good. If he continues to see 50% or more of the snaps, then yeah, he's a viable flex play. Probably nothing more than that, but he's a viable flex play, whether Aaron Jones is healthy or not. And we don't have an update so far from what I can tell about Thursday practice reports for the Packers. For what it's worth, Aaron Jones did practice on a limited basis yesterday. The fact that he's still limited, he hasn't totally shaken that hamstring injury. Depends on who your other options are. But yeah, Dylan is viable. Dylan's viable. It's a boring flex play, but with all the injuries and all of the week 9 buys, it could be worse. Let's see. 10-man PPR. Which two receivers do you start? Higgins, Pittman, Deontay, and Olave. I would say Pittman needs to be a lock in your lineup this week. He's going up against the Carolina Panthers. Um, they're allowing a ton of opportunities and production to outside wide receivers. Uh, Pittman came through with 8 catches and a touchdown in a brutal matchup last week against Cleveland. It's a more favorable matchup this week. I would say Pittman has to be in your lineup. And then between Olave, Deontay, and Higgins, you hope that the Bengals offense is starting to find its groove. Higgins is in the best situation here. Olave is also in a good spot against Chicago. He would have had a massive game had he turned around in time and that ball didn't hit him in the face. That led to that. I mean, it wasn't a drop, but he just didn't get his head around in time to find the ball. He would have had a walk-in touchdown. It's between Olave and Higgins. I would not play Deontay of these guys. I like Deontay in full PPR as a floor play, but I think you have better options available to you. I would say Higgins is your floor play and Olave is your ceiling play. Olave should have had a monster week last week that maybe would have made this a little bit more of a clear-cut answer, but it didn't happen. He only caught 5 balls for, I think, 40 yards. But this is a great spot. This is a get-right spot for Chris Olave at home against the Bears. I would say he is your ceiling play. Higgins in a potential shootout. He's not quite 100% yet from the rib injury. I think he still only played about 60% of the snaps last week. Okay, 67%. So that's good. Almost 70%. So that's a little bit better. For what it's worth, 5 catches for 69 yards is the second best game of Higgins' season thus far. At home against the Bills, we expect this to be a shootout. Higgins is safe, but given how favorable Olave's matchup is, and he's his team's wide receiver 1, I would say Olave is your upside play here. And that might be who I go with until I see Higgins have a T. Higgins game. A Higgins game that we've grown accustomed to seeing. I think I would go Pittman and Olave. I think I would go Pittman and Olave. Higgins to the bench for one more week until we see him have a T. Higgins game. Again, you could fire him up as a safe play in a shootout, but he's not quite playing his full complement of snaps yet as a result of the rib injury. And then, of course, I like Deontay as a PPR floor play, but I think you have better options than just a low end floor play. That's where I would go. What's up, Iron? What's up, Rojo? Good to see you guys. Would I start Hopkins in DFS? I feel like for DFS, and Iron, you obviously, do your thing. You have to start Hopkins in season long. But I feel like for DFS, we could be chasing a little bit tonight. Hopkins had an outburst last week. We can't expect a 30 burger again. He had 3 touchdowns. Now he's, on the road, short week, was on the injury report, right? He's healthy now. I just got the sleeper notification that Hopkins has been removed from the injury report. So you comfortably fire him up in season long, but because it's a short week on the road, he didn't practice yesterday because of this toe injury. I would probably err on the side of caution as it pertains to Hopkins in DFS. It feels like a tough spot. Um, it's a favorable matchup by the numbers. I just hate players on Thursday night in a vacuum, especially when they're on the road. And Hopkins on the road, I feel like there are safer, better DFS options than DeAndre Hopkins. We want to be cautious chasing a big performance when it's pretty unlikely that he's not going to, maybe he gets half of those numbers that he got last week. Maybe. I don't think I would. I don't think I would fire up Hopkins in DFS tonight. But he is hell. Yeah, he's hell. Yeah, we got the notification. He's going to play. So in season long, fire him up. In season long, fire him up. In DFS, I would be a little leery of using Hopkins. He's didn't practice yesterday. Short week. Let's see how Will Levis does in his second career start. First on the road. Minimalized game plan because of the lack of time to prepare. I would err on the side of caution with Hopkins. In DFS. In season long, fire him up. Drop Justice Hill to pick up Singletary to play over Douglas or Rice. I think I'm okay with that tentatively. Obviously, we're going to keep an eye on practice reports. And you don't want to do that if Dameon Pierce is able to somehow log a limited practice tomorrow. If Dameon Pierce is able to practice at all on Friday, that maybe puts a wrench in those plans. But 2 missed practices, and he only played 43% of the snaps last week anyway. So, yeah, Singletary looks like a guy that I would say, yes, that's a fine thing to do. It's fine to add Singletary. At the very least, you probably want to roster Devin Singletary. Pierce hasn't logged more than 60% of the snaps in any game this season. And the past 2 weeks have been his lowest snap percentage of the season. 43% week 8. They were on bye week 7, but in week 6, Pierce only got 33. He was on the field a third of the time. Now, he was getting the ball each time he was on the field, but it was 13 carries for 34 yards. That's awful. Pierce has not been good, man. Pierce has not been good. So I will say at the very least, Devin Singletary should be rostered. And I think given those options, I'm okay playing him. Demario Douglas, Rashee Rice, I'm okay with playing him. So, yes, at the very least, in your 10 and 12 team, probably maybe even 14 team leagues, make sure Devin Singletary is not on waivers. I should probably check that in one of my own leagues. This one doesn't matter, though. I drafted Nick Chubb. He died. I drafted Garrett Wilson. He's been okay, but not the wide receiver one I needed. I drafted Dameon Pierce. This is like my one team where it's like everything I could have done wrong, I did go wrong. Is Singletary out there? He's not. Somebody already picked him up. I'm kind of. This is like one of those leagues where it's like it's a $20 buy-in. I don't care. I'm asleep at the wheel at this point in the season. I think I'm like 1-6 or 2-6 or 1-7. It's not good. Anyway, Singletary should be on rosters for sure. Let's see. You put Chuba in over Gabe, Nico, Palm. Well, Palmer, I think Palmer didn't practice today, so that's fine. They play on Monday night. This was the Chargers' first practice of the week this week. So him not practicing is more like a Wednesday missed practice than a Thursday mixed practice, but obviously we want to keep an eye on that one. In full PPR, I mean, Gabe Davis has been coming on pretty strong. Panthers get it's possible that Chuba just like kind of took the job away from Miles Sanders. The issue last week was Hubbard got 15 carries. He turned him into 28 yards. That's bad. I think in full PPR, I would play Gabe. I would play in full PPR. I would play Gabe over Chuba. Personally, Chuba is maybe the starter. Miles Sanders got 2 carries last week. So it's possible Miles Sanders just like lost his job outright. The problem with that is Chuba was bad last week. I think I would take the wide receiver who, for the most part, is on a bit of a hot streak. I think he's been good basically in 3 of the past 4 games, catching passes from Josh Allen in a potential shootout against the Bengals over a running back who had what, 1 RB2 performance on the year thus far. Two catches for 26 yards is good, and there's nothing scary about the matchup. Okay, Hubbard was the RB. It depends on your scoring. Hubbard was a top 10 running back week 6 against Miami. Every other week, he has been outside. He's been an RB3 or worse. And I guess, obviously, some of those weeks, Miles Sanders was the clear-cut guy, and Hubbard just wasn't getting opportunities. But, I mean, 14 carries in week 4 for 41 yards. Blah. 9 carries for 35 yards. A little better, but still meh. Last week, 15 carries, 28 yards. Gross. 2 catches for 26 yards supplants that a little bit. The only week he really looked good running the ball was week 1 against the Falcons. He had 9 carries for 60 yards. Since then, it's been bad. I mean, his usable week, his top 10 week 6, he had 19 carries for 88 yards, so 4.6 yards per carry. That is good. That is above average. That is rock solid. And he scored the touchdown to put the cherry on top of an RB1 week. But like in full PPR, I'll take Gabe. I'll take the wide receiver catching passes from Josh Allen. I'll take the wide receiver catching passes from Josh Allen. All right. I see some of my members have some more. They got a couple more questions at the end of the chat. Again, for anybody who might be jumping in new or for the first time, or whether you've been here before, just a reminder: I do get to my members first. That is a perk of being a member of the channel. Your questions will jump the line, but I will come back up to the top and answer everybody eventually. So Just ask for patience. Appreciate it. Um, is Jameson Williams in bust territory yet? Yeah, I mean, it's close. You're not going to give up on a guy who you drafted 12th overall just last year. And last year, we're going to throw out the window. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He was recovering from the torn ACL that he suffered in January. We'll give him that one. But I mean, it's mostly been bad. He's only made one play. He made one play last year. He's made one play this year. They just traded for Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I guess is not as talented as Jameson Williams, but plays a similar role, deep threat. He only had 2 catches again last week. It's not looking good. It's really not looking good for Jameson Williams. Um, Have to have any type of faith in him right now. So yeah, he's in bust territory. It's like he pretty much he's got the rest of this season and the start of next season, and then that's it. If Jameson Williams doesn't turn things around by the time he's played 20 to 25 games, then it might just be like he is what we thought he was. Territory anyway. We thought he was going to be really good. We currently don't feel that way. It's dire straits time for Jameson Williams. The trade for Donovan Peoples-Jones doesn't help things. It's not necessarily a death sentence, but I mean, what can you say about the guy at this point? He's made 2 plays in his NFL career. One was on busted coverage. One was a nice adjustment to the ball. This was a couple weeks ago. I think that was against Tampa for a long catch and score. But I mean, 2 catches, 16 yards. He was blanked week 7 on 6 targets. 2 catches for 53 yards in the score week 6 against Tampa. That was a big play that he was able to make against them. And then in his return from suspension, he had 2 catches for 2 yards. It's not good so far. It's not good so far. I will say I think in Dynasty I'd rather have him over Kadarius Toney. Yes, Tony's on the Chiefs. He's catching passes from Patrick Mahomes. That's all well and good. But I mean, he's not much of anything either. At least I would say Jameson Williams, I would say we can have a little bit longer of a rope with him because the sample size is smaller. Kadarius Toney is what he is. He's a gadgety guy that probably should have been drafted in the 3rd round of the draft, not the 1st round. Expectations as a result went too high for him. And we're seeing his role maxed out in the NFL. In an offense, in a Chiefs offense completely devoid of wide receiver talent, he's not able to step up. He's not able to be the clear-cut guy. Like Rashee Rice has already like outproduced this dude in a handful of games. Rice has had more usable fantasy weeks in 8 games than Kadarius Toney has had in like 2.5 years. So I'd rather roster Jameson Williams. I'd rather roster Jamison Williams. But we're getting close to the point where you don't really want either one of them. And then, do I like Trey Tucker? I mean, eh, they can't get Devontae Adams the ball. Maybe things turn around now that Jimmy G is officially benched. He only played 13% of the snaps against Detroit. I mean, if you want to take a flyer, fine. But I mean, they can't get their best wide receiver the ball. I don't know that I want ancillary pieces on a dead on arrival Raiders team. I think I'd pass. Not feeling that one. They need to prove that they have something of a sustainable NFL offense before I worry about the ancillary pieces on the Las Vegas Raiders. Maybe you pick him up in the offseason if we get any wind that they are going to trade Devontae Adams, which they should have done at the trade deadline, but they didn't. Okay, back to the top. Let's see. I got Sport Dog's question. Derek, you're welcome. Appreciate the kind words. Happy to help. What do I think about Pollard rest of season? He's a boring RB2, which is I feel like the entire fantasy community missed on Tony Pollard. And that's through no fault of anybody of anybody's analysis, research, projections, all that stuff. It was shaping up for Pollard to be a top 5 running back this year. Zeke was gone. The Cowboys have a decent enough pieces in place on offense to move the ball successfully. Who knew how valuable Kellen Moore was to this offense's production on a per individual basis? I mean, Pollard's been okay, but he hasn't come anywhere close to the ceiling that people were hoping they were getting from him. And his efficiency has gone off a cliff. Like, as a 26-year-old running back, you don't expect that to happen that quickly. With a guy who doesn't have a ton of tread on his tires, with a ton of wear and tear on his tires. I mean, 12 carries, 53 yards at home against the Rams in a game where they had the lead the entire day. Like, what are we doing here? He hasn't scored since week 1. He's only got 2 games where he went over 5 yards a carry. Now he has a 6 catch output. That was week 6, and he has a 7 catch output. That happened week 2. So, like, those are good, especially for full PPR. Those are good, but I mean, we drafted this dude because he had easy top 8 upside and potential top 5 upside. Where would you put him at now? The RB like 16, 18? Like, guys like Jonathan Taylor surpassed him. Breece Hall surpassed him. Travis Etienne surpassed him. Shit, both Detroit, when David Montgomery comes back, both Detroit running backs have passed him. I think DeAndre Swift might have passed him. Isaiah Pacheco might have passed him. Like, he's a boring RB2. It's a far cry from where he was from what he was supposed to be. Pollard is one of the disappointments of the fantasy season thus far. Could he turn it around? Sure. There's enough time. The Cowboys offense is strong enough. But I mean, I think they're missing Kellen Moore. I think they're missing the creativity that Kellen Moore brought to that offense. With Kellen Moore, that offense regularly led the league in total offense. It's not good. Relative to expectations, it's not good. You still have to start Tony Pollard, but I mean, all confidence that he can be an RB1 week over week over week, that's gone. That's gone. Let's see. Pick 3. Pittman, Flowers, Hopkins, Deontay, Kareem Hunt. Is it full PPR or half PPR, Michael? I start Pittman. Flowers has a good or it's actually I'm thinking about Arizona last week. It's a slightly tougher matchup against Seattle, but he is at home. Hopkins and Deontay play tonight. Kareem Hunt gets the Cardinals at home. What's Jerome Ford's status? He was closer to playing last week than I think a lot of people anticipated. Or, well, he did get in there, but he only played a third of the snaps. I don't hate Hunt. You have to start Pittman. He's the guy I would definitely start regardless of scoring. It's full PPR. Deontay is a little more intriguing because it's full PPR, but like there are some decent options here, so I'm not like super pounding the table for him. Like, Pittman has to definitely be in. Uh and then, Hopkins, Hunt, Deontay. It's a good matchup for Hopkins. I just don't love the spot that he's in on Thursday night. And he's been on the injury report all week. I don't mind Deontay getting peppered with targets tonight, and at least he's at home. But again, Pickett's dealing with the rib injury on a short week. That throws some volatility into that situation. I think I go Pittman. I think I go Flowers at home. And because Jerome Ford is expected back, that makes Hunt a little less enticing. I'll say Deontay. Ugh. I like Hopkins tonight, but he has been on the injury report this week. It is a short week on the road. It's a good matchup, but it's a good matchup for Deontay as well. I'll say Pittman, Flowers, Deontay. I'll be honest. I don't have a ton of confidence in saying to pivot off of DeAndre Hopkins, but short week on the road, that just gives me some pause. I'd much rather play the guy playing at home. So I'll say Pittman, Flowers, Deontay. And then that way, if Jerome Ford is a surprise inactive or can't play, you could fire Kareem Hunt up over Zay Flowers if that happens. Pittman, Flowers, Deontay. Do I like Pacheco or Achan rest of season? Checo's looking has been looking. He didn't have a great game this past week. Um, we can chalk that one up to Mahomes not feeling super well. Um, I guess I have to say I like Pacheco more because he's his team's starter. I don't know what role Achan has when healthy, assuming Mostert is also healthy. Plus, we got a rest of season. We have to factor in the weeks that Achan is going to miss now. So as of right now, I think I have to say Pacheco. I think I have to say I prefer Pacheco because he's the healthy one right now. Achan's going to miss this week, and I think the Dolphins bye is next week, right? It is. He's expected to come back week 11, so we don't have to wait too much longer for Achan. I just don't know what his role is. Like Raheem Mostert is still, for now, the guy. That's the only thing. I guess I would say Pacheco. Greg, you can probably remove London from that list. He's missed the past couple of practices due to that injury. He doesn't appear likely to play. I would play Garrett Wilson over Hubbard. Probably. Hubbard's inconsistent. That backfield might, who knows? Do they give Miles Sanders a little bit more work this week? Or are they just going to put, their big spent free agent on the bench like for the rest of the season? At least I know Garrett Wilson is playing every snap. Oh, you have Wilson. Oh, sorry, I missed Wilson over Amari Cooper. Okay. I guess that's fine. I would consider playing Kareem Hunt over Chuba Hubbard just because they're playing Arizona. That's a very favorable spot. It's a good spot for Chuba as well against Indianapolis, but Hunt, even as an older running back, is probably better than Chuba. Chuba's just tough to trust, man. He's had one really strong week thus far. It's not a lot. I guess I would flex I guess I would flex probably Kareem Hunt over Chuba Hubbard. Let's see. Start two between Flowers, Amari Cooper, Hopkins, Godwin, Christian Watson. I don't think we can consider Christian Watson. That Packers offense is brutal right now. Um, I'd go Amari Cooper, and then I don't know. Is it between Flowers and Godwin? It's half PPR. Godwin scored a touchdown last week. Flowers has a tough matchup. The Seattle corners are pretty good. Start two. I would go Cooper and Godwin. Hopkins is going to be a trendy play. And I don't blame you if you want to start Hopkins this week after the performance that he had last week. I worry about chasing that production on a short week on the road when Hopkins has been on the injury report. That's the only thing. I hate Thursday night games, man. I hate Thursday night games. They throw a wrench in ultimately determining what to do with your lineup. They hurt more than they help. They hurt more than they help. I'll say Cooper and Godwin. Cooper, good matchup against the Cardinals at home. Godwin, nothing scary about the matchup against the Texans. I'll take Amari Cooper and Chris Godwin. Texans offense is solid with CJ Stroud. Tampa's probably going to have to do what they can to keep pace. Let's see. You have Will Levis and Sam Howell. You're leaning Howell. That's probably where I would go. Will Levis was awesome last week. He threw 4 touchdowns. That's awesome. Good for him. Great to see. Can he do it again on a short week on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers? There's upside there. And while I don't love the spot that Howell is in this week against New England, he is going to be chucking it a lot for the rest of the season. Washington traded 2 of their better players on defense. It's going to be easier to score against the Commanders, which means the offense is going to need to stay aggressive. Howell has decent weapons. Terry McLaurin. I mean, we saw signs of life with Jahan Dotson. Logan Thomas is pretty good. I guess Curtis Samuel might not play, so that's not great, but he can dump it off to viable options out of the backfield. Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, pick up a few extra yards here and there. You have to like what you saw from Will Levis last week. He blew every projection and expectation out of the water, but short week on the road. I think I'll take Howell. I think that's if you're leaning Howell, I would go Howell. I think that's what I would do. Yeah, I would go Howell. Let's see. I talked shop with my members already, so appreciate everybody's patience and appreciate my members coming in and hanging out. As always, they're the ones that help keep the lights on around here. Full PPR, start 2, flex 1. Flowers, Pickens, Olave, Amari Cooper. Probably sitting Pickens of this group. Probably. I think this is a get right spot for Chris Olave against the Bears at home. I like Amari Cooper this week, whether it's Deshaun Watson or PJ Walker at home against the Cardinals. He should be fine. Nothing scary about that matchup. Flowers is catching passes from Lamar. It's a tougher matchup for Flowers. The Seahawks corners are solid, man. They're good. Um, but Flowers himself has also been pretty good. Is it full PPR? It is full PPR. So Flowers, he didn't have a great game last week. You know, I thought that was a really good spot for him. But I mean, he's got 5 catches or more 3 of his last 4 games. And that one game, the game, and he's cleared 50 yards receiving in every game but one, last week being the one. You figure this might be a little bit of a bounce back spot for Flowers. His consistency has been pretty strong. Meanwhile, Pickens saw a dip in production last week after Deontay's first full game back from injury. He's the most volatile one here for me. Pickett's dealing with the rib injury. Yes, they're at home, but it is still a short week. So I don't love that spot. I would say Olave, Cooper, Flowers are your starters. I would say Pickens to the bench. That's probably what I would do. And then Goddard or Schultz. Goddard's got the Cowboys. Schultz has Tampa Bay. Goddard has been pretty lackluster this year outside of a couple of performances. Schultz started to come on strong after a really slow start himself, but was quiet last week. Tampa is not giving up a ton of production to opposing tight ends, although they did allow Dalton Kincaid to have a nice game last week. I don't love it, but I'll say Goddard. His ceiling is higher than Schultz's. You could argue Dalton Schultz's floor is a little bit stronger than Dallas Goddard's, but Goddard's ceiling is higher. Attached to Jalen Hurts, attached to the Eagles offense. Could be a lot of points scored in Philly this week. I'll take Goddard. And then between the Falcons and the Giants defense, who are the Giants playing this week? The Raiders. It's not a bad spot for them. The Falcons get the the Vikings at home. I think I'll say that I might actually say the Giants. The Raiders are. Look, I mean, it depends on a lot is being made right now about Antonio Pierce's opening press conference and how, there's a lot of people who are feeling inspired by it. The new interim head coach for the Raiders, he was saying all the right things. However, they do have to get ready on a short week with a colossal upheaval, right? They played on Monday night, and now they're hosting on a short week the Giants. They fired Josh McDaniels, which was probably a good thing. They got rid of the GM. They benched Jimmy Garoppolo. All of these changes are positive, but also it's a lot to ask in a smaller amount of time for them to come together, get ready, rally, and have a good game, all that good stuff. I kind of like the Giants to get some sacks in this spot. And if Saquon can go nuts against a Raiders defense that just allowed Jahmyr Gibbs to run wild against them, um, if the Giants are playing with a lead and they're able to tee off on O'Connell, I think I actually like the Giants this week. Believe it or not. I think they're a decent spot. I think they're a decent spot this week. So, Goddard, Giants for your defense. This is a rest of season flex question. I mean, it's going to vary week to week. I wouldn't say that we have to, you know, you don't have to set your flex for the rest of the season. You just have to set it each week. Of these guys, I would play Gabe this week. Shootout against the Bengals potential. But what if something happens to Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf? Now you're looking at Jackson Smith-Njigba being a guy that you probably don't want to take out of your lineup. What if Jalen Warren goes down? Now, all of a sudden, even though Najee's boring, he's going to see even more work than he previously was. It's a loaded question. I would just you're worrying about it week to week. You're worrying about it week to week. So I would go Gabe this week. And then, you attack it. You attack it differently depending on the matchup and the situation each subsequent week from here. But I would go Gabe this week, and we'll sort out the flex. We'll sort out the week 11 or the week 10 flex, next week. But I mean, these are all decent depth pieces that are worth at least hanging on to for now. And yeah, Greg, I missed that. I mean, the Cowboys are not the same, at least right now, on offense without Kellen Moore. And the inconsistent production from their best players, it's hard to ignore at this point. Let's see. Okay, you got to drop a player for a kicker. I don't want to drop Tajay Spears, although you could just wait and see how tonight's game plays out, and then he could be the guy that you drop. I wouldn't drop Charbonnet. It depends, Antonio, on like how strong are you at other positions? Like, is running back your strength? Then maybe you drop Tajay Spears. If wide receiver is your strength, then maybe you drop Rashee Rice. Could you do a 2-for-1 trade that frees up a roster spot? Play to the strength of your team. If one of those positions is clearly stronger than the other, then you drop the last guy at the position of strength. I mean, that's how it gets sorted out. If your wide receivers are awesome, drop Rice. If your running backs are awesome, let tonight play out. If Tajay Spears doesn't have a big game, after the game, you can drop him for a kicker. And then if you want to re-add him next week, he shouldn't be a difficult guy to re-add if he has a quiet game. But don't drop Tajay Spears before kickoff. You never know what could happen. What if Derrick Henry picks up an injury? You don't want to drop Tajay Spears now just to grab a kicker that you can wait to pick up until after this game is played. So right now, do nothing. If running back is your position of strength, wait until this game is played out. If Derrick Henry comes out of it unscathed, has a good game, and Tajay Spears has a quiet game, then you can drop Tajay Spears tomorrow or tonight, whatever, after the game is played. Let this game play out first. Let this game play out first. What's going on, Jay? Good to see you, man. Is it still cross country season or did that wrap up? I assume we're at the end. We're probably at the end. Um Ford and Sutton for Addison. Yeah, I mean, sure. If you need a running back, depends on how badly you need a running back, but if you're getting the 2 for 1, I don't love giving up Addison, but obviously it's a little harder to feel good about him now that he lost Cousins and you're picking up you're still getting a wide receiver who has been performing in Sutton and you're getting some running back help in Jerome Ford. Yeah, I think I would. I mean, if you've got 4 studs at running back and you love Jordan Addison, then maybe don't do it. But if everybody can always use some running back help. Everybody could always use some running back help. So, yeah, I think that's fine. Let's see. Flex 1, London, Deontay, Downs. Well, London's probably not going to play, so it's tough to feel good about him right now. And then is it full PPR? What's the London, Deontay, Downs, Michael Thomas? Is it full PPR or is it half PPR? If it's full PPR, I guess I feel a little bit better about Deontay. Um, and then Downs, I think, was a late add. I think Downs was a late add to the injury report today. Let me double check that. I know London has missed practice the past 2 days, so that doesn't bode well. He was down, and Downs was downgraded to a limited practice with a knee injury. At least he still practiced, but we got to monitor his situation. I guess given these options, I would fire up Deontay. But don't put him in your flex. Again, for anybody coming in new, if you haven't heard my spiel before, always, always, always take your Thursday night football players, move them out of your flex. If you choose to play a guy on Thursday night, put them in a position spot. Keep your flex open till Sunday, maximize your flexibility. Random late adds to the injury report. It maximizes your ability to tinker with your lineup, and you're not stuck with having to pick a specific position group if your flex is already used up. If you play Deontay, and I think of these 4 guys, I would play Deontay. Downs was downgraded in practice today. Thomas is kind of blah, and it's, like, what did he do last week? It was quiet. Also, Eric Carr has just, like, been pretty gross recently. 4 for 68. I mean, he's not. It's not great, but I guess I would play Deontay if it's full PPR. But again, move him to a position spot. Move Deontay to a wide receiver spot. Keep that flex open for somebody who's playing on Sunday or Monday night. If you've got anybody going in the Monday night game, I guess I would go Deontay. Between McBride or Pitts, I'd probably play Pitts. It's looking like Drake London's not going to play. So while the Falcons' offense is impossible to trust, there could be a few more targets funneled Pitts' way with London out. And with McBride, he's on the road against the Cleveland Browns, and Clayton Tune is looking like he's going to get his first career start. I don't like that spot at all, so I will take Pitts. I'll take Pitts. I'll get these other questions shortly. Let me get Jay's question as one of my members. I want to make sure that I get my members. That is a member perk for anybody who's new. You get to jump the line with your questions. Regionals are the next couple of weekends. Okay. I never qualified for regionals. I wasn't that good. The 8K is hard. Like running your guts off for 5 miles straight, that shit sucks. I gotta be honest. I'm like proud of myself for having done it, but I don't miss that stuff at all. Um, anyway, two running backs in a flex between Pollard, Walker, Gus, Wilson, Olave, Devontae, Pittman, and Collins. Oh, man. Pollard is tough to trust, but I feel like you have to fire him up. You have to fire Walker up. And I think you have to fire Pittman up. Pittman came through in a really bad matchup last week, and now he has a really good one against Carolina. So I think you have to fire up Pittman. I don't love the spot Pollard is in, but I think you have to fire him up. Walker's on the road against Baltimore. That's not a great spot. What did Walker do last week? Even though it was like he might not play, but then he did play. 8 for 66. That's still pretty good. Or I mean, it's not great production, but like on a per touch basis, it's still pretty strong. Tough spot against Baltimore on the road. Meanwhile, Garrett Wilson gets the Jets, but you need to start two running backs. Pollard and Walker, Jay, and then I would go Pittman. Pittman's got a great matchup against the Carolina Panthers. It sucks that you have all those wide receivers that you have to sit. I don't know. Maybe try to trade like two of those guys for like a Stephon Diggs or something if you can't start all those guys. Like Olave and Smith for Diggs or whatever. See if they'd go for it. But if you have to start two running backs, it's got to be Pollard and Walker. Gus is probably in a better spot, but Walker is the better player. So you got to chase the talent there. Pollard, Walker, Pittman. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. Yeah. Pollard, Walker, Pittman. Pittman is a rather easy call for me this week, even over some of those, you're talking about some high profile receivers there. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, and Nico Collins for what it's worth. These are some high profile receivers. I'm playing Pittman over all of them. He's been pretty solid. He delivered last week in a bad matchup. Now he's got a really good matchup. Give me Pittman as your flex. Okay. This is tough. Sit one between Henry, Brees, Jacobs, Taylor. Taylor and Brees Hall have to be in. Have to be in for me. I mean, you're talking about four. These are four must-start players. These are four must-start players that we're talking about here. You have to start. I would say your best Brees against the Chargers. That's a layup. Taylor against the Carolina Panthers. There's nothing scary about that at all. I like the spot that Henry is in tonight, but short week on the. I mean, you're talking about four RB1s. So, I mean, all these dudes are potentially getting 15 plus points rather easily. But if you can't play all four, I guess I'm sitting the dude who's playing tonight. I guess I'm sitting Derrick Henry. He's on the road. It's a short week. I wouldn't be surprised if Tajay Spears mixes in a little bit more. Could Henry get 85 yards and a touchdown? Yeah, he's Derrick friggin' Henry. It's what he does. But I guess if I had to bet against one of these four dudes, if I had to, gun to my head, I'll sit Derrick Henry. I'm playing Brees Hall against the Chargers. I'm playing Jonathan Taylor against the Panthers. And it should be noted, when Aiden O'Connell played week 4, I think Josh Jacobs had like 7 or 8 catches. So I'm going to chase that. Like, Aiden O'Connell could be a great result moving forward for Josh Jacobs. If he's going to be a check down god, if Josh Jacobs is averaging 6 catches a game moving forward, forget it. I mean, he's going to give you great production rest of season. I think I would sit Henry. I don't want to sit any of those guys, but if I have to sit one, I'll sit Henry. Iron, are you going to the Germany game? That would be nuts. That's a small stadium for 40,000 people. But whatever, the NFL Europe, all the teams were in Germany, so I mean, if there's any intrigue for the game, it's got to be there, right? It's got to be there. Oh, Greg, sorry about that. No problem. I said I would probably play what did I say? You got a Wilson, you got Amari. Oh, I said I would probably play Kareem Hunt over Chuba Hubbard. Even if Jerome Ford comes back, they have the Arizona Cardinals. Cleveland should handle their business in that game at home. They should be running the ball with decent success. I would probably play Hunt over Hubbard. Hubbard's tough to trust. He had one really good game and a bunch of crap games. I would probably swap Hubbard out for Kareem Hunt, even if Jerome Ford comes back. That's probably what I would do. But the rest of the starting lineup looks good. All right, let me make sure I get to everybody's questions with we're under a half hour before kickoff, so I'm sure there's some start-sit questions in here that could involve players in tonight's game, so I want to make sure I get to them all. Let's see, Johnny, you're 2-6. Top team in the league wants one of your running backs. You have ETN, you have Swift, you have Jacobs, you have Achane. The guy to trade is Achane because you need wins. You need wins. Achane doesn't help you this week or next week. So if you lose again, if you're 2-8, it's not going to matter that you have Devon Achane. You're going to be out of it at that point. You need to rely on and ETN's on bye. Damn it. Well, you can't trade ETN. He's been he's a top 3 to 5 running back rest of the season. So even more to the point, you don't want to trade ETN, especially not for those wide receivers. You need Jacobs and Swift this week. So the guy to trade is Achane. I would ask for I guess I would ask for Olave. I guess I would ask for Olave and just hope that he can turn it around. I would say give me Olave for Achane. And your argument is you're the top team in the league. You don't need this dude for the next 2 weeks. You're looking for a strong stash with plenty of upside. Here you go. Here's Devon Achane. All you need to say is, I need DeAndre Swift this week. I need Josh Jacobs this week. And I'm not giving you ETN unless you give me 2 of those wide receivers. And I don't even know if I want to do that. In fact, I'm going to tell you right now, don't do that. The guy to trade is Achane, who I know he looked spectacular before he got hurt, before he went on IR, but you're 2-6. He's out this week, and the Dolphins' bye week is next week. You can't use him for these next 2 weeks. These are dire weeks for you. You need wins. I would say, here's Achane. Give me Chris Olave. That's what I would do. Here's Achan. Give me Chris Olave. That's where I would go. Yeah. See if you can pull that off. And if he doesn't want to do it, then just keep what you have and hope for the best. But I would ask for Olave for Achan. Let's see. Pick two between Rashid Shaheed, Michael Thomas, or Donta Foreman. I guess I would play those two Saints wide receivers. Thomas for the floor, Shaheed for the upside. The Bears are playing the Saints on the road, and Roshan Johnson is back. Forget it with Foreman. I would just play those two Saints wide receivers and hope for the best. Shaheed is up and down, but he's way more likely to make a big play than Donta Foreman, and Thomas is your floor play. Thomas is your steady play. Shaheed is your ceiling play. We can't trust Foreman in a tough matchup with Roshan back. Yeah, your Saints wide receivers. PPR pick two: Mostert, Higgins, Hopkins. You got to play Mostert. Sounds like he's going to be fine for this game against the Chiefs. And oh man, between Higgins and Hopkins, I'm a little leery of chasing DeAndre Hopkins tonight, just in general. It's just he hasn't practiced this week. It's a short week on the road. Um, I'll say Higgins in a potential shootout against the Bills. It's a home game for Higgins. You're hoping that he can you're hoping that he's like a week healthier, a week further removed from the rib injury. Um, I'll say Mostert and Higgins. I think that's where you got to go. I would sit Hopkins tonight of those options. I'm very leery, just in general. If you have DeAndre Hopkins, if it's between DeAndre Hopkins and like Rashid Shaheed, play DeAndre Hopkins. But if you've got guys like T. Higgins, I would play the dude who isn't currently on the injury report and is playing with a full week of rest, not playing until Sunday, as opposed to Hopkins, who's playing on a short week on the road and didn't practice yesterday. The toe is probably bothering him. Now, Hopkins is a gamer. He's a baller. It might not matter, but we're hoping for half of the production that he put up last week in slightly tougher circumstances because of the short week on the road. Mostert and Higgins. So similar answer, Deontay or DeAndre Hopkins. They're both on the short week, but at least the Steelers are at home. Deontay is not on the injury report. Now, Kenny Pickett is, but I think Deontay in full PPR is a slightly safer bet for a decent floor play. He had 8 catches last week. You figure Pickett's going to want to protect himself. He picked up the rib injury last week. He's going to get the ball out fast. That spells Deontay for me. I'll take Deontay over Hopkins. It's a little tougher to trust the dude on the road on a short week. At least Deontay's at home. All right, I got to keep it moving so I get to everybody before kickoff. Fletcher Cox, what's going on, Fletch? Good luck against the Cowboys this week. Trade DJ Moore and Hawkinson for Pollard, Pickens, and Kincaid. I'm okay with that because at least Pollard is not great right now. He hasn't been very good, but at least you're picking up some running back help. He should at least be an RB2 rest of season, and you're acquiring a running back like that without having to give up a running back. Kincaid could be a short-term thing when Dawson Knox comes back, whereas at least Hawkinson got stabilized a little bit with the addition of Josh Dobbs. But it is an offense that is downgraded rest of season, and then DJ Moore for Pickens. Yeah, you'd rather have Moore, but the Bears are a mess on offense. Pickens at least I mean, the Steelers aren't that much better, but at least Pickens is a viable option most weeks. Because you're picking up Pollard in the 3 for 2, I think I'm okay with this. I think I'm okay with that acquisition. I think I'm all right with it. Pacheco or Hopkins? Give me Pacheco. I'll take Pacheco. Do that. I don't want to play. If you have a starting running back in what could be a shootout in Germany this week, I know Pacheco had a bad week last week, but I'll chase the starting running back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been ruled out, so whatever opportunities he normally gets, even though it's not too many, Pacheco should just pick those up. Between Pacheco and a banged up DeAndre Hopkins, I'll take Pacheco. Give me the starting running back. I'll take Pacheco. Start one between Pacheco, Pollard, or Gus. Pollard. This is a big game for the Cowboys. They don't have to do a transatlantic flight over to Germany. It's a big NFC East game. The Eagles are pretty good at stopping the run, but their linebackers are suspect. Their secondary is suspect. I would think this is a game Pollard gets involved in as a pass catcher. I'll say Pollard is your start among those 3 options. Jacob, I got your question. I would go Deontay. Full PPR, you need flex between Najee, Pitts, London, or Musgrave. London's probably not going to play. He's missed the past 2 weeks due to injury, or last 2 practices due to injury. Najee is tough to trust, but so is Pitts. It's close. In full PPR, I'll say Najee, but put him in a running back spot. Leave your flex open just in case. Random injury pops up, whatever. Whichever running back you have in your running back spot now, put Najee in that running back spot. Put the running back playing on Sunday in the flex. Maximize your flex. Never play Thursday Night Football players in your flex. Keep your flex open until Sunday or Monday, just in case a random injury pops up Friday or Saturday. I guess I'll say Najee. Coral, I got your question. I would go Pacheco over Hopkins. Start 2 between Hopkins, Myers, Addison, Pittman. Play Pittman for sure. I don't want to play Myers because he lost Jimmy Garoppolo. Between Addison and Hopkins, I guess. Now in this situation, I guess I'll play Hopkins. I like Addison, but we need to see how he does with Jaren Hall as the quarterback. At least Will Levis gave us some reason to have some confidence this past week. Between guys like Hopkins or Jordan Addison, I'll go Hopkins. Play Pittman and Hopkins. Just make sure Hopkins is in a wide receiver spot. Again, don't play your Thursday Night Football players in your flex. Put them in a position spot. Maximize your flexibility. Iron, you need to start 3 between Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore, Flowers, or Pickens. Yeah, the first 3. Wilson, Moore, Flowers. Pickens saw only 1 catch last week. It was for a score, but with Deontay back and on the short week, I guess he's a little bit more volatile compared to those other 4. I'm okay with sitting Pickens, and I would go Gabe over Hopkins. Gabe has been pretty involved the past few weeks. He had 3 of the past 4 games have been good for Gabe. He's in a potential shootout against the Bengals. I'll go Gabe over Hopkins. And then I'll start Najee tonight, Iron, over Gus, over Madison. It feels gross, but I don't trust the Vikings backfield. Cam Akers is very involved right now. And then Gus, I like Gus, but I'll give the slight nod to Najee. You already know, Iron. Just make sure he's in one of your starting running back slots. Leave that flex spot open for Sunday and Monday. And then Joe with Amon-Ra on bye. Palmer, Shaheed, Dotson, or Douglas. You have to play 2 of these guys. I'll play Shaheed for the upside. And then Dotson had a really good game last week. So I guess I'll chase that. Patriots have been giving up some production to wide receivers recently. So I guess I would go. We can't trust Josh Palmer right now, but obviously you could keep an eye on practice reports. Let's put it this way, Joe. If these are all guys that are playing on Sunday, so you have time, I wouldn't pick up Quentin Johnston. Palmer missed practice today, but if he returns to practice tomorrow and Saturday, remember they play the Monday night game, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday is the practice schedule for the Chargers this week. If Palmer returns, then I would play Palmer and Shaheed. But if Palmer has to miss the game, then I'll go Shaheed and Dotson. And you have to drop one for a kicker. Probably Douglas. Don't drop Palmer even if he misses the game. I would probably drop Douglas for your kicker. Rice, Hollywood, Hopkins, or Gabe Davis, full point PPR. I'm going Gabe. Give me the guy on the full week of preparation, normal week for the Buffalo Bills. They're playing in a potential shootout against the Bengals. Hopkins has been on the injury report this week. He's a little volatile on the road on short rest. I'll take Gabe Davis. And then Hollywood, he's catching passes from Clayton Tune this week. Rashee Rice has been solid. That's also a potential for a track meet between the Chiefs and the Dolphins. So he's definitely got some viability. I think Gabe has been a little bit better recently. It's between Gabe or Rashee Rice. I would not play Hopkins tonight. If you want to come back this week, is it Ishan or Ishan? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly one way or the other. Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern, I will have another start-sit stream. Gabe and Rice don't play until Sunday, so if you want to hash it out then, we can. But I would not play Hopkins tonight given those options. I think I would lean Gabe slightly over Rice, but I would not play Hopkins. Got you, Iron. And then real quick, start 2, Hopkins, Hunt, Godwin, Flowers. I would go those last 2 wide receivers, Godwin and Zay Flowers. I'm a little leery with DeAndre Hopkins tonight. Short week of rest. Missed practice yesterday. He was on the injury report. Hopkins is a gamer. He's a baller, but this is a bit of a tougher spot on the road on short rest. Give me Godwin against Houston. Nothing scary about that. And I'll take Flowers at home. It's a tougher matchup against Seattle, but Lamar is playing like an MVP. So I'll take Flowers there. I'll take Godwin and Flowers of those 4 options. We got about 10 minutes before kickoff. Appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out. Thank you for your patience. I know I had to get through a lot of different questions right there at the end. But best of luck tonight. Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern. We'll host another start-sit stream to sort out anything for Sunday. Hopefully the outcomes for tonight go your way. Best of luck, and I will see you guys on Saturday to finalize lineups ahead of the Sunday slate. Thanks, everybody.